Well, hello and welcome to this fourth lesson. This is called the mental rehearsal, and it is an action step. Um, what creates transformation is creating new practices in our lives. And so this is following the three previous sessions about who I am and what I want, my yeses and nos, and then how to actually activate that. So I'm going to do a little recap just to anchor how this sequence is actually building a new world for you, a new understanding of who you are and what you want in it, right? So in the first session, we talked about who am I, the temperaments. You know, we have strengths and weaknesses within our temperament, but we can't become somebody that we're not. Then we talked about, our growth and development and how that actually can change how we perceive the world at certain ages of our lives. And most of our growth and development is kind of tapped out at 12, 13 years old. So we're working on those operating systems from a very long time ago. And then we learned about the three brains and how the critter brain just wants to keep you so safe. Fight, flight, or freeze. And that's the only function that you can feel when you're in the critter brain. The limbic brain, the heart brain, is about love, and it's about, supporting, whether it's the critter brain or the cortex brain that's running the show, or if she's in there all by herself, just offering love to everything. And then the most evolved brain of mankind is the cortex brain. It's at the top of the skull, and it has the vantage point of a broader view. It's about creativity and intellect and curiosity and integrity. That's the cortex brain. So in our first lesson, we were looking at who am I, right? Then we moved on to the second, which was who do I want to be? Like, what do I want to change in my life? Who do I actually want to be in my life? And we tried to anchor that in our senses. What do I see? What do I feel? What do I taste? What do I hear when I am in that place of who I want to be? And the reason that we do that is that we need to summons our wannabe, our MOFA, motivating factor, when we hit the struggle, to step into that power of who I want to be. So how do we create the space for this new vision of ourselves is by clearing the clutter. And that's an ongoing practice. On a weekly basis, look around and see, where is the stuff hanging out? And the reason for this is that you can't, for an example, add water to a full glass. So clearing the clutter is like emptying the water out of the glass so that you can fill it with fresh water. Like if your glass sat on the counter for 2 hours, you're not going to drink it. You're going to toss it and you're going to get a fresh glass of water. So we need to empty the vessel that is our human experience by clearing the clutter. Clutter can be what I refer to as attachments to belongings, to feelings, to people, places, institutions, ideas. So when we're clearing the clutter, it's not just like a desk drawer, which I actually cleared one dress drawer in my office the other day, and I found a medallion that I was looking for that had been missing since March. I looked everywhere for it, but it was in my pen drawer in my desk with all my Sharpies and colored pens and markers, and it was buried underneath. And, so each time we clear clutter, we really are going to find a gem, or we're going to discard everything that we don't need. And then we interrupt our routines. Neural pathways are the binding function that makes habits so simple to repeat, because the neural pathway is really dense and it has so much familiarity. So by introducing new strategies, like your toothbrush is on the right side of the sink instead of the left, or your underwear drawer is now at the bottom instead of the top, or you drive a new route to go to work, or whatever it might be, rearranging furniture, fixing your closet. Every time we rearrange our footprint, we're signaling to the brain that we're bringing a new idea, a new pattern into our lives. And there's less resistance by the critter brain to hold on to the neural pathway that he knows so well to welcome something else. So simply, yesterday, I moved my knives from next to the sink to next to the stove. So every time I go to do anything that I need a knife, I'm going over to the sink. And then I'm like, oh, wait a minute, going over to the stove. And just that little shift, I can chuckle at it. And then I can say, oh, yes, that's because I want to get a fresh look on things. So that's how powerful that is. So that was lesson one. Lesson two. Lesson three was, now if we know who we want and we're clearing space for it and we're allowing new neural pathways to build, how do we really decide to take action on who we are? And that's the yeses and nos. So the story, when you're in your old patterns, are different yeses and nos than what you're going to decide in the new realm, in the new world that you want to participate in and how you participate in it. So these are, again, an ongoing practice. You'll experience, family or friends or your job, and you'll be like, whoa, I don't like that. Being the observer, I'm not comfortable with that. Is that a hard yes or a hard no? And so when these are challenging decisions to make, does this fit? Text me, journal me, and we will map it out. So anytime that you're like, I'm so confused, I can't decide if I feel strongly about this or not, and we'll talk about it. So continue to send your journals to me and I'll help edit and comment about it. Okay. Then now we're going to introduce this lesson, which is the mental rehearsal. Okay, so if we know who we are, we're figuring out who we want to be. We're going to create yeses and nos to move that needle forward so our brain can take on new stuff. Mental rehearsals is how we anchor it and how we practice that communication that we want in order to have these relationships that we desire and deserve. So quite a long time ago, I'm terrible with dates, but maybe 20 or 30 years ago, Olympian coaches came up with this concept of mental rehearsal. And so what they invited their racers to do is, at the top of the box, to visualize and physically, in every sense of their sensory world, going around every gate perfectly and crossing the finish line as a winner. And so if you watch the Olympics, you'll see a racer doing these movements. He's going through the race in the box before he leaves the gate. And when he gets to the bottom, he has a better outcome because he practiced it in his mind, but he engaged his senses to get it done. So that's what a mental rehearsal is about. It's creating the experience you want before it happens. So they always advise that the best mental rehearsal practice is at night before you go to bed, because the last thing that you say, think, feel before you go to sleep is what your brain repeats over and over and over again. So if you decide for tomorrow, I really want to have this kind of conversation with my friend or my mom or a coworker, and there's a topic in it that's of importance, and you map out how you'd like that to go, and it's the last thing you think about when you go to bed, your brain will replay that little script that you designed over and over and over again, and then it will be intuitive come morning. So the opposite is, when I go to bed, I worry about how I didn't complete everything that I wanted to today, or I'm worried about tomorrow, or I wished I had done this differently, or I feel like this, or I feel like that. And the last thought I have is a low vibrational thought That's what your brain is going to repeat all night. And guess what? You're going to wake up in the morning behind the 8 ball to start your day. So while we go to sleep, we have the greatest opportunity to diminish old neural pathways and create new ones. Mental rehearsal is a way of creating new ones. When you do, the older one that you're not accessing anymore begins to diminish. It doesn't have as much power, doesn't have any deep roots, and eventually you don't need it. It's pruning the garden. So the ingredient that I like to offer in this lesson about communication is strategizing with a mental rehearsal using a compliment sandwich. Have you ever heard of that before? So a compliment sandwich is beginning the conversation by honoring, acknowledging the person that you're engaged with. Top of the bun. Then you introduce, honestly and lovingly, with your hand on your heart if you need, what your concern is. And then you close with a mutual beneficial strategy. Bottom of the sandwich. So you get the top of the sandwich, at the top of the bun is the compliment. The meat of the sandwich is the thing that you need to address honestly and lovingly. And the bottom bun is coming together with that. So I practice these with my clients all the time. I'm going to have a conversation with my mom about, that she's not taking care of herself, or, my sister who treats me poorly, my son who's worried about school. How do I approach these family members with a conversation that it will serve them? So the reason that we call it a compliment sandwich, and the reason that we start with honoring the person, is that if we go straight to the meat of the conversation, we are probably going to put that person in a defensive status. I don't want you to worry about school. Well, the kid's going to worry about school because you just said you don't want him to. So his knee-jerk reaction is, well, I have to because she doesn't want me to. So, it's just instinctive. If instead you said, I know school's hard. September's around the corner. You're taking some strong classes. What I want to suggest is that rather than worry about your ability to do the work, maybe you can take a few minutes, go for a walk before you go to class, get in a positive place, and see how that works for you. And then you can tell me about it. Like if it works well, we can share it. If it doesn't work well, we can practice it. But what I want for you is for you to go to school in September with confidence. So that conversation, and I just did that off the top of my head, could be refined with a mental rehearsal. I probably said a little stuff that I wouldn't choose to if I practiced it. Conversations are spontaneous, yes. Practicing the ones that you want to actually deliberately have creates the instinct to then be able to create a compliment sandwich like that. So this is why I'm here. You've got worksheets that are going to guide you through this. Then you have me, both in your Zoom call and in your journals or in a spot call, a text or a quick phone call to practice this stuff. So we need to build. So we need to review, go back to, and practice our earlier 4 sessions or 3 sessions, so that the 4th one is on steady ground, right? That's how transformational is sustainable, is when we don't neglect the lesson before, but we build upon it, because we can forget, especially if we're spending a little bit of time in between these lessons. So please make sure that if you have any questions, you reach out to me, and you probably do. So reach out to me. And then what we will ultimately do is get to session 5 and the 5th session. I name them numbers different. It's like module 2, session 2, whatever. I do make it a little bit confusing, but because what we're working on is creating a family. And if you're a family of one, you're still a family. But creating clarity, communication, and connection in our families. And we do this in 3 sections. The first 3 is knowing who we are. The middle section is the action. And the last is the inspiration and healing that needs to take place. So we're in the middle. And I hope you enjoyed this little video about what we're doing. And please feel free to reach out to me as you go through this module. And then we will have our Zoom call and anchor it all. So I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for being here.